the inevitable COVID-19 conversation, and how can gaming help in these times. So we've got Rosemary here from Shadow's Edge. Rosemary's going to come and join me. I think this is an incredible kind of thing about what's happening with games. Games isn't necessarily immune from the issues of world problems, but it is a massively powerful tool for escape, for mental health support, and so on and so forth. And I'll be interested to see what Rosemary thinks about all of that. So Rosemary, thank you for joining us, and I will pass over to you. Oh, you're on mute. There you go. You're good.
Yeah, there we go. All right, so I'm sharing my screen as well because I'm sharing a little bit of a presentation. I hope that's...
Yep, that's coming through. Perfect.
Perfect. Let me just put those tools to the side a little bit. There we go. All right. So yeah, as you said, it's an inevitable conversation, right? we weren't thinking actually when we started a game that that's what we would be using it for, but here we are. And so I'm here to talk a little bit about why I'm here, who I am, what we've been doing with our game, putting that in a serious context, and then really show a little bit about what the game does so that I can then explain how we pivoted towards COVID as that started happening, and then some lessons learned from that process, because this was a very short notice thing that happened. Obviously, the world went quickly, and we had to just basically adapt, which is that's me after the first couple of weeks of COVID. Not that I had any virus, but just because of the workload. So I am, I have a classical training, a classic background in tech. So anything from, help desk to outsourcing, etc., in various small and large companies like Microsoft, IBM, etc. Until I decided to join a little startup that did gamify things like urban development. And so city planning, the topic smart city, if somebody's heard that, where you look at how can you make the cities of the future better for people. And I believe, the ladies before me mentioned some of the more simple stuff with toothbrushes, but there's a whole bunch more, of course, that you could gamify also in a city, where we could simulate how a city runs and try to, in the simulation already, iron out all of the kinks and all of the mistakes that we do when we're building a city. And so that part got me into gaming. And then I was approached by a friend of mine who said, look, I have a self-help book and I would like you to join. And so what I did first was I looked at her and I was like, okay, with a self-help book, if you want to do something that goes more digital, I think I would create a game. And I was thinking of, some of the things that you see here on this slide, a lot of the games that actually have some meaning to it nowadays, that are not just for entertainment, that are trying to get messages across. And so that's what I started doing. I started looking into those, and I came across some of these that are now quite well known. I don't know if anybody knows about Concrete Genie, for example. They want to raise awareness about bullying. So the game is a city where you go around and you actually work with a lot of tools of art and you go against bullies. I Hope is something that a company called Microsoft has made together with Hope Labs in the US. And it is based on a principle of shooting your cancer. So there you have to try and fight your cancer in a virtual world to empower you. And then another one maybe to point out is Mission 1.5, which is an environmental game where you can vote for your country's legislations and changes that you could make to actually help save the earth. And apart from that, obviously, there's like the mainstream games like you see here in World of Warcraft or Zelda that also have scenes integrated to raise awareness about certain topics like suicide, or with World of Warcraft on the left, it's diabetes, for example, or loneliness or anxiety. And that's just a trend that we see much more. And so that's what we wanted to do with Shadow's Edge. With Shadow's Edge, the goal is to help people become more emotionally resilient. So to build emotional strength. And so what we did is we took the advice from psychologists. We based the game on narrative therapy and looked at, what could we do? What helps really if you have anxiety or depression? Specifically, we were looking into people that have chronic illnesses, that are seriously ill, and that really have, extreme hardships that they're going through. And so we started working with both psychologists, but also with teens and young adults that actually had issues like cancer, Lyme disease, diabetes, amputations, you name it, like really serious stuff. And looked at how could we make a tool that works as a digital therapeutic, but also is fun. And that's sort of where we then nailed down really we wanted to go with gaming. We hired a fantastic gaming studio because we're not a gaming studio. We are a nonprofit organization, and we want to bring free self-help content to young people that need it. And so we hired a fantastic gaming studio in the Netherlands called Little Chicken Game Company, and they worked with us and were really good with working with teens and with young adults in their studio to make all of this happen. So what we did was really try to figure out how can we impact the emotional health of young people. And to do that, and I'll talk a little bit about what the game actually is, but to do that, we really designed from the start a study to look at what do people talk online about when they have serious illnesses. You know, what are they thinking about? What is their stress? What are they anxious about? And then we built a survey together with the e-health department of the Dutch government and a university in the Netherlands that looked at how do you become more resilient and how do we measure that? What is resilience and how do we measure that? And there were 7 factors of resilience that people can measure. Things like proactive coping, optimism, positive self-identity, a more positive outlook on life. All those things, if you can manage to have those, that will make you stronger to face whatever comes your way. And so we had 7 of those factors, and then we built a study around it where we had a baseline and an end survey. And we had young players play for 6 weeks, 3 times a week for 20 minutes. And this is some of the outcomes that you see there. So we've got tons of Google reviews and App Store reviews as well. One of my favorite ones is where a girl says, yeah, I think the Shadow's Edge just helped me find out things about myself that I really didn't know I was capable of. So it made me stronger because I can face things better. And we found that with the results, people became more inspired, more empathetic, and also more connected, and they were less afraid to be real and authentic. And that's I think, something that was really good for us. Specifically because in 6 weeks, if you do that allotted amount of time, generally you get about halfway through the game. So the more positive content is actually later in the game as you start leveling up. So what is Shadow's Edge? Well, Shadow's Edge is a tool where it's a game where you enter a city and the city has been hit by a storm. And that's what it looks like on the left. You can see everything's sort of out of whack. It's dark, it's dreary. And what you have to do is 2 things. You have to find the pages of a missing journal and answer the therapeutic questions that are on there. Those are much like you would get in and around therapy or in a self-help book, if you will. They're questions about self-esteem, questions about life, questions about what you're going through, friendships, all those types of stuff. And those are all mapped onto the psychological journey that you go through when something harsh happens to you in your life, where at first you may feel like your life has been disrupted, you may be angry about that. Gradually, you start going into a phase that we call disillusionment, where you think this is never going to end. And, with COVID, we've all been there in the last couple of months. And then you get more into discovery, where you start to incorporate what's happened into your life and really see and look forward into what you're going through now. And as we started then testing more, and we had a clinical study also with Lokhorst Children's Hospital, we saw, well, it's not just for people with chronic illnesses. There's actually a lot of other people that were approaching us and said, look, I just feel anxious. I'm totally stressed out. Can I play this game too? And so we started adapting the content more generally, taking away some of the medical questions and really putting that more into more content into our game that could apply to a broader audience. And as COVID hit in March, suddenly we started seeing people that online and giving us reviews saying, I'm really glad I found this game now because it's a hard time. I feel isolated. We started seeing drawings, and that's the second part. I forgot about that, sorry. The second part that you do besides journaling is you create graffiti and you make your city beautiful again by arts that you can also share in the game with others. And so we started seeing things popping up in the game and around the game with COVID related, as you can see here. People were drawing things related to COVID and sharing that in our community. And we decided that we wanted to actually adhere to that. The other thing that we noticed was that people were coming back to us and saying, you know what, this game looks exactly like the real life with COVID. And so as you can see here, this is the first phase in the game on the right, which is disruption. And on the left side, obviously, Las Vegas has been disrupted. Again, here, this is from the second phase, which is disillusionment, which is where there's, in our game, there's dust, not snow, settling on the situation of your life. But you can see that there's a lot of similarities with closed shops, empty streets, everybody left. Because in Shadow's Edge, a storm hit and everybody left, and you're basically there to save the city with your work on yourself. And this then is the last phase we call discovery. So again, a very similar outlook as we have here in real life nowadays. And so we thought, well, if that is happening, what can we do to help? And so we reached out to, again, our partners that we have, like Starlight and others, and said, okay, can you send some people our way? And we started reaching out in the game, in the onboarding community, and asking, okay, who wants us help to figure out how we can make this game more suitable for what's going on now in your world. And so we came up with a bunch of extra features. We had additional missions put into the game that really related to the current situation. In the game, there is this tool we call Shadowgram, which is like an Instagram in the game, and it's a community. And basically, you can take a picture of your world that you created, not of the journal, that's private, but you can take a picture of the graffiti you create, and then you can share that with other players in the game. And that was really very basic and very much a push situation where other people could just see what you were doing. And so with COVID happening, we saw that there is a much bigger need because of the isolation and the frustration that the teens had to really connect with others. And so we've built out Shadowgram, as you can see on the left. We've built out Shadowgram further to really incorporate like challenges that they could do, things that we ask them to draw about what's happening in the world and then post to others. We also made sure that we had more rewards and more stickers and more graffiti stuff that really they could use to express their frustration of what they're going through. We also set up like a social media calendar that was quite different. So we really revamped all of our communication with the kids. And as you can see on the right, one of the missions that we have in there, for example, is to do a photo hunt where we ask people to do something very specific. Like here in this case, it's imagining what COVID would look like as a monster and then draw that and share that with others. And so we also wanted to give people more of a way to give feedback within the game and to also comment on things as well. So apart from a development cycle, which then went very quickly in sprints of like 1 week before we then published additional features, and then working with the teens directly to really make sure that we were implementing the things that they needed at that time. We also work with psychologists to make missions and challenges in the game that really would help people in the situation they were in. And then we started seeing also that players from the game, I mean, we had quite an increase in downloads as well. And so we saw players from the game also really connecting more with us on social media and asking us for more, young people related content. And so within the space of about 6 weeks, not only did we redevelop our game a little bit, but we also completely revamped our social media and how we handle the communication with teens outside of the game. So we had a different type of look and feel, but also we upped like quarantine edition Q&As where young people could ask us anything that they wanted. We also worked with partnership organizations like Lonely Whale and Starlight Foundation to come up with tips and tricks that we could do. On the right hand, you see, for example, that is a different format. That's not for social media, but that's actually a billboard that we can publish in the game. So around the game, we have these billboards set up now where we can give public information and we can advertise certain topics. And on the bottom left here, you see that we also started running free webinars for teens, but also webinars for parents to really help them cope with specifically this situation. And the unique thing, I think, because our game was built with psychologists for young people that have emotional stress, anxiety in dire situations, I think what made it really unique for us was that we were able to pivot that quite quickly because we had the psychologists already on board to really make sure that what we were doing is the right thing and was helping the teens. And so we started seeing really cool results. So these are some of the things that the teens made in the game in Shadowgram. And on the left, the two, those are in response to our challenge of drawing Corona as a monster, for example. And we also saw more positive messages coming up again after, you know, a couple of weeks of really doing this, which we thought was really rewarding. So what are the outcomes of this? I mean, we had basically from mid-March until about mid-May, it took us to pivot, to really turn things around. As I said, we did weekly sprints with an upload to the app stores on a weekly basis, just releasing a few features at the time. That really helped get a bond with the players as well. We were able to confirm that young people do really want to express themselves, and there is a need for this kind of community where it's safe and where people feel they can express anything, and where people, specifically young people of any kind, can join. So we've seen an increase not only in downloads, but we've also seen an increase in people that play quite longer and that want to help others, that really come with encouraging messages and inspiring messages. We've also seen that the importance to really stay current if you have a game, to really stay with your audience and go where your audience goes. And so we've gone pretty much through stages asking people within the game, on the billboards, you know, please vote. What are the kind of things you want to see here? What are the challenges? We've asked people, you know, to come up with missions. We ran a game jam for young people to help us really come up with the content that they needed to know, because it's all about them. This is meant to be an emotional support tool for them, for the players. And so we really wanted to make sure that we continue to work with the players directly to make it for them. We've also seen that it's more about the content. We haven't changed the story of the game with Shadow's Edges being a city that has been hit by a storm, because there's metaphors enough in there, you know, that fit with what the world is going through at the moment. It's more about really making sure that the content that you do deliver is really what your players want, and that requires a lot of communication with your players, and that's what we've done a lot. Consequently, our playtime went up, which is great. We really have people engage longer. We started seeing people who play the game really all the way through. And we've also seen that there's more writing and definitely more sharing with other people. So people are now, our players are now trying to share with others, to keep things going, to really make sure that others benefit from what they have to say and that there's an interest. We've also had a lot of media interest because of what we're doing, and we've seen that that makes absolutely no difference for our tools. While we had a few more impressions every time we had an interview, a TV interview or whatever, it does nothing for the download. And I think one of the things that we did at the beginning of the game is we really tried to push this game through psychologists, through healthcare professionals, and through parents. And what we're seeing and what we're validating here, I suppose, in this time for us, is a good learning that we need to talk to the teens directly and to the young people that are playing our games. And they're not going to accept a self-help tool if it comes pressured from, for example, their parents, especially not when they're confined, when they're frustrated anyways. A lot of them are frustrated with their parents, and that's something that they will write in the game. And therefore, you know, that's not necessarily something they will accept from their parents and from their surrounding. Another good thing to come out of this is that we had a lot more partnership opportunities. So with Starlight, for example, we're not only pushing the game with them on their website and through their media, but also at the same time, in parallel, we have dug out our version again that had more medical information. We've updated that, and we now have 2 versions of the game. So Starlight is pushing the more medical version out through all of their hospital network now over the next couple of months. They're going to run some campaigns with us. They're going to really actively push our products. And we have other partnerships that have really asked to work with us as well on topics that we never thought our game might be relevant for. But it is, because, you know, the game is not about fixing one issue. It's really about themes of what is happening in you as you go through something tough that comes your way. And that could be, you know, it could be an accident, it could be an illness, it could be what's going on in the world right now, it could be stress. We see a lot of messages on Shadowgram at the moment related to riots in the US, for example, where people feel unsure and just need to vent. So what we see is the the fact that young people want to reach out remains the same, and that there's themes, no matter what they are going through, there's themes that come up like isolation, loneliness, frustration, stress, anxiety, no matter what they're going through. And I guess that's something that we are really learning from this, that there is a lot more that we could do with the same game to help a lot more people. We've also seen that we have a much higher number of impressions. So people are actively in the stores looking for content, searching for things like mental health, searching for emotional health, searching for keywords like resilience. And we are in the gaming category. So for us, that's a really good thing to see that we still come up there. But of course, it also makes a huge difference in applications such as Calm and others. And they've seen numbers surge as well. So we do see that with everything that's happening in the world, there's just a lot more people looking for content that may help them. So that was a little bit of a roundabout pivot. I saw that there were some questions. I'm not sure, Oscar.
We've got a couple. I mean, for me, I'm gonna kick. Actually, I should start. The first question is actually a request to connect with you, because Michelle Perez, who I think is, let me just remind myself what the company is, Mondia Media Group, apparently is keen to talk to you about distributing through operators and telcos. So I'll let you. I'll let you connect with her later.
Game, I know I mentioned that at the beginning, but just to reiterate, it's a free game. We just want to help people. So anybody that wants to help us just get the game into the hands of people that need it, absolutely. I mean, my email address is here. I'm also very easy to find on Google due to my weird name. So that's a very easy one. I've just put you up here. I hope that's okay, but it feels weird to talk to you and then not see you.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Okay. But I think what I find fascinating about this sort of stuff is that we kind of have an epidemic of mental health issues. I think it's actually not just the fact that we are in crazy times. I mean, the UK in particular, the US in particular, I think, you know, ever since 2016 and obviously in the run up to 2016, there's been a lot of social issues. We've got the kind of the climate change denial issue, which is affecting a lot of people. We've got a whole bunch of kind of like problems in the world, and at the same time we have I think a better understanding that mental health issues are human issues, and you know, whatever that might mean. So one of the things that strikes me is that there are moderation and safety concern issues that we have responsibility as developers of environments like this to make sure people are safe. Absolutely. How do you go about doing that? I mean, I work with a couple of mental health groups, and one of the things is helping people ask them the question, are they okay, and directing them to support. Do you do things like that?
Yes, we do. So maybe just to back up a little bit. So one of the numbers, as you say, it's not just about COVID. We started already pivoting earlier on, where we just took out some of the medical questions and really focused on emotional health, because we started seeing that is a huge issue. And according to, for example, the American Psychology Association, about 27% of all people, young people, which the World Health Organization defines as 10 to 24-year-olds, actually identify themselves as being regularly depressed. That's a staggering number. I mean, if you consider that there's 1.2 billion people in that age group, and then 27% of that, that's a lot of people, no matter what they're going through and no matter where they are, right? As you say, you know, there's things like eco-anxiety, there's so many new issues popping up. And apart from that, it is tough nowadays to be a teen. You know, when I was younger, thankfully, Facebook and other things didn't exist, right? So I was able to screw up without people knowing. But now there's just a whole lot more pressure to be perfect, and there's a lot more pressure, you know, to really become what other people are showing is the new norm, basically. And so I think that's really important. And so to answer the question about security, yes, obviously we do. We are, as they say, HIPAA compliant and COPPA compliant. We have obviously rules and regulations in place. All of the content is on a secure server. It's hosted on Microsoft Azure. It's encrypted, all that kind of good stuff that you need to do technology-wise. one of the reasons why we didn't allow commenting was because we're a very small group of people, and so we couldn't provide the monitoring that is necessary according to the regulations to really be able to handle anything, from bullying, etc. And of course, there's especially in this audience, there is the metric called TTP, right? Time to penis.
Yep. I'm so glad it wasn't me who said that one. It's normally me who uses that acronym.
I'm Dutch. But the point being with that, we haven't had one yet.
Really?
We really haven't had one.
Wow.
We've been alive for 2 years. We haven't had one, so that might be a new record.
Just for context, for people who don't know why that acronym is so important, on PlayStation Home we had a Little Big Planet game, which was a whiteboard. The very, very first thing someone did when it went public was to draw a penis. The very, very first thing. And so the fact that you haven't had that yet blows my mind.
Right? Spray painting, I mean. But no, so that's what we're doing now. So we've just gotten a small grant from the Dutch government to build out our community. One of the things we're going to be doing is opening up for commenting. And at that point, we're hiring resources. We've hired a community manager, and to really moderate and get the tools in place also, because obviously there's also technology tools that can help with that. Once we start growing bigger and we can't do it manually anymore, we also have a partnership with an organization in the US that does biometric registration. So there are, measurements and steps that we can take. We're just doing them step by step, because we also don't want to just implement stuff for the sake of implementing it and just see where it goes and how it takes us. We don't have a huge audience yet. So we have about 30,000 players. So at the moment we're able to handle it, but we are steadily growing and we're getting to that point where we have to implement it. But we do have the concepts in place already. We have the people on board that can do it. We have the partnerships that are necessary for it. So it's now just really figuring out, what's the best timing to be able to do that. The other thing maybe to mention is we do have a process in place if something, comes up. Like, for example, we had one issue, which is actually also kind of funny. We had one issue where I got a call from one of our people in the team late night, and she's like, I think we have an issue. There might be somebody that's suicidal. And we went and looked, and and obviously we can, as you say, we can send out a notice, with the resources. We have resource lists, we know numbers in different countries. Of course, we work with psychologists, so we can offer them for them to have a session with a psychologist, a short talk. So, and obviously we have the helplines on our website, so we can point them to that. And so as I'm like looking into, okay, so how do we prepare that? I'm like, I think I know this username. It turned out to be our founder. And she had it was not suicidal at all. She meant something like, now the door finally, I'm going through that last door, and she really meant like, I'm doing fine now. But
yeah. Oh, wow. That just shows you how important it is to context is everything, isn't it?
And we do have that. So one of the things that we always do when there's a message, like last week, there was a message about the riots, and it just broke my heart. And so all of our team actually created something in spray paint. And trust me, what I create is not pretty. So, they must be very happy that I do it, because I'm terrible at it. But we all create like a nice message then for that person and say, look, hang in there. There's comments we can give, here's a hug, and this hits home, and I'm so sorry about it. So there's comments we can give, just canned positive comments. And then also we do reach out via email and just check in and say, look, we've noticed you've posted something that's a little bit dark. Is it okay? Let us know. And then just, send back an emoji, if a thumbs up or middle thumb or down, just so we know, basically.
That's interesting. The next thing, so Sai has asked, did you try to add video chat? And I'm interested to see if that's something you've looked at.
No. There's a couple of things where with psychologists we decided to not do, which seem obvious. One is give them an avatar. Right? Seems obvious. It's a nice thing to reward people. They can buy stuff for the avatar or whatever. Well, first of all, we're a free game, but still they could get additional stuff. But we decided not to do that because there's the psychology of making yourself look different and better than you feel. And we really want people to be able to be authentic. And so therefore a first world sort of vision seemed better. And for similar reasons, we didn't want to do video chat. It's a little bit more anonymous if you can just paint something in the game and if you can give comments, rather than having to go on a video, because there immediately the pressure comes up a little bit again to just look nice, right? And to sit better, and I mean, somebody that, for example, really feels depressed is probably not going to go on a video chat. But those are the people we really want to reach. And so for now, unless the kid, and we do tests, by the way, we regularly, we have play tests every 2 weeks. And we have like a group of 250 kids that I call them kids, but they're 16 to 24-year-olds that are helping us continuously on the game. Those are the first ones that we reach out to with surveys. You know, we check in every month with them and ask those types of things like, hey, these and these features, you know, still the same feeling, or has it changed? And video is one of the things that everybody immediately said, well, almost everybody said no.
Yeah. And I think the reason for that is that you've got to be able to protect people. And I think as soon as you have a video chat, it becomes much harder to be anonymous. And I think in this context, you know, that's really, we've been working with a couple of companies in mental health issues and try to look at how you can use narrative play to support positive mental health outcomes. And again, time and time again, that sense of security and, you know, protecting your identity, so that you can be open and honest, and that you can engage with other people who are going through related or similar problems in a context that's looked after by professionals. I think they're really key factors.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think, you know, the game takes you through the process of healing, right? So it goes from disruption to disillusionment to discovery. All along the way, there's different areas in the city that are mapped to the questions that could fit that area. So we have central, which is the central role your issue takes in your life. We have downtown, which is your inner self. You'll find questions about self-confidence there and about your strength and your character. Park is your meditative self. So there's questions there that are more about, you know, emotional wellness and well-being and mindfulness. And then commercial is a district where we ask more questions about how you portray yourself to others, how others perceive you, and how that might change over time. And I think getting them through those metaphors and really having them, you know, connect with the guardians, the characters in the game that are then in that stage and behave like they're in that stage, right? And sort of play back what teens would do in that phase and in that stage. I think that's more powerful than just seeing somebody else. There's so many video tools out there, and I agree with what you say, and our psychologists that work with us agree as well. We want to make sure that they feel like they can say anything, and it's okay. They're not judged.
There's so much more I want to ask you. There are questions about if you're free, how do you monetize, all that kind of stuff. Sadly, we're out of time.
Donations. So
donations. It has to be done. Thank you, Rosemary. That was amazing. And I think it's really great what you guys